Welcome back to the Humble Market Timer YouTube channel. Once again, if you enjoy the content, please like, comment, and subscribe. Today's video is on First Majestic Silver Corp, ticker symbol AG. Now, year to date, it's more than doubled, but could it still be a disappointment? I think so, and I'll explain to you why in this video. Before I go any further, here's my disclaimer. Once again, these are my sole ideas, not investment advice. First Majestic Silver is one of the more notable silver miners in the world. It is one of the few companies, few miners that trade on the U.S. stock exchanges that mine almost exclusively for silver. Most of the companies sort of have a mixture of silver and gold and some of the other metals, but First Majestic is unique in that it's one of the few that almost totally mines for specifically silver. Now, not to go in too deep in the company, I want to kind of tell you where my mind is and why I think up to this point we've sort of been a bit of a disappointment. Let me run some numbers by you. Okay, first, as many of you know, silver has exploded and rocketed higher over the last month or two. We hit all-time highs, reaching as high as about $54 to $55, and we recently had a pullback. And we have only been in that 50 range just a few times in the history of silver. The last time was in 2011. Right now, silver is sitting at about $48, $49. So it's still up pretty good, even though we've had a pretty substantial pullback up to this point from those recent highs. But again, the last time we made that big move into that $50 range in silver was in 2011. So I want to compare some of the numbers from First Majestic Silver from 2011 to 2025. Now, if you look here on the far left of the screen, you can see in 2011, when we made that massive move to the $50 price range, and if you averaged out the quarterly revenue in quarter one and quarter two, the revenue averaged out to be about $60 million a quarter. And that was when it had about 125 million shares outstanding. But when it peaked, when silver hit that peak of 50, First Majestic Silver also peaked. And it peaked at about a $3 billion market cap. Again, that's $3 billion market cap with about 55 to 60 million in revenue a quarter at 125 million shares outstanding. So where do we sit now compared to that? In 2025, last quarter, First Majestic did about 264 million. That was with silver at about $34. In quarter three, which they will announce, I think in the first week of November, the average silver price was about $39. So you're talking about an extra $5 an ounce in the price of silver, and they produce just under 8 million tons of silver, or 8 million ounces of silver. So if you do the math, we're anticipating in quarter three in that November, when they present the revenue in November, they're going to make about 300 million, maybe a little under, but right around 300 million just for quarter three of 2025. Now, the share structure has increased from back in 2011. It's going up about fourfold from 125 million to about a little less than 500 million. And we have a market cap that's currently sitting at about 6 billion. So we have an increase in revenue of about 5 times compared to 2011. And to offset the increase in shares outstanding, which was only increased by 4 times. And so you're looking at revs, big jump, the shares outstanding, yes, it jumped, but it hadn't been offset from the revenue. And then you're looking at the market cap and you're saying to yourself, it's only twice what it was in 2011 when it had its massive run to $50 a share. And it just doesn't seem like AG has hit the area where we thought it should hit based on the increase in revenue and production compared to 2011. You would think that the price would be very similar to where it was in 2011, if not higher. And again, I've seen online people talk about, well, the share structure is higher, but again, the revs offset that. Now, there are other factors. It could be, you could factor in debt. I'm sure there's more debt. Their expenses may be higher. But to me, I think it's a fairly equal level that it should be compared to what it was in 2011. And this doesn't even factor in how much inflation has increased since 2011. So again, I think even though the stock has done well, I really think it's underperformed. Just looking at one more factor, if you look at the price to sales ratio in 2011, it was about 14 to 15. Right now, we're sitting at it being at about 5. So it was 3 times higher back in 2011 than it is in 2025. So again, looking at all those things, you would have thought that AG, at least from a share price standpoint, would be fairly similar to what it was in 2011, but really it's only gotten to really about halfway to that point. And so kind of looking at everything, I kind of came to the conclusion that really what has been holding up First Majestic has just been the technicals in the chart. So let's go now, let's dig a little bit deeper into the technicals. If you notice, this is a monthly chart, and as you can see here, we recently hit an area of about $15 a share. And if you notice in the chart historically, that has been an area of resistance and support for this company all the way back to the early 2000s. And as you can see here, you see we had resistance here, resistance here, here, resistance here and here, resistance in this area here once again, resistance here. All these areas, it has had problems breaking, and it's also been support area. So that $15 area has always been a critical spot for First Majestic, and it's proven to be that point once again. Now looking at the weekly chart, as you can see, the setup is still really good in First Majestic Silver, even though in my opinion it's been a disappointment. And let's take a look at a couple things. If you notice here, we had a shoulder form, then we had a head, and then another shoulder. Classic inverse head and shoulder setup. And if you were to take the measured move from the neckline to the deepest part of the head, and you break out of that inverse head and shoulders, you can see you get to that right around that $15 mark. So if the measured move worked out perfectly in gauging where AG would go next just based on the technicals. But if you also notice, let's get rid of this inverse head and shoulders that I drew. We know that's a very bullish setup, but if you notice, again, we stalled out that $15 area, but if you look, there is another neckline that is forming, or that has always been there in that $15 range. And I believe that we are setting up for another shoulder, head, and what I think we're getting ready to see in the very near future is another shoulder. I believe this is the setup that we're currently on pace for in First Majestic Silver. And at that point, if we break this neckline, then I think we can hit those previous highs. I just thought that we would be able to hit those previous highs when we made that initial push to 50, because it has always made highs once it's hit that $50 mark. But the key is, and what ideally you want to see, is that the retrace for this shoulder on the side of the head and shoulders potential action will be a quick pullback and then a reattack of the neckline. We had a much longer shoulder over here, and then you notice we had a short shoulder on the right side. If we have similar action, we could possibly have a slight pullback and then reattack that neckline in a very quick fashion. And if we are to have the break of that neckline, you can see here, take the neckline to the deepest part, measure it to the breakout point. You can see that puts you in that $25, $26 price range, which is where we have topped out in previous bull runs in silver for First Majestic Silver. Now, just kind of taking one more broader look, again, looking back again at this monthly chart, if you notice, we're also kind of setting up a scenario where we're in a widening, broadening wedge, sort of like that megaphone type of action. And you can see we bottomed at the bottom part, then we stalled out the top here, then we hit the top here, then stalled out at the bottom. So we've been in a megaphone action. If things continue to move higher and progress higher, I can see us not necessarily stopping at the $25 mark, but pushing all the way up here to the $30 range to hit the top part of that megaphone before we have another pullback. Unless we have another massive push in silver in which we make major highs. I've done another video where the setup in the silver chart is potentially showing a much bigger move well beyond 50, and that could potentially trigger another massive move in First Majestic Silver. So be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for silver. Disappointed in AG, but I think with a little bit of patience, we'll be able to get to those highs that I think we should have reached already. Hope you like the video, like the content. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.